Hi, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing my income journey from my very first job to where I'm at now as an entrepreneur. I do, have multiple businesses, but it wasn't always like this. And I want to give a little bit of realism to what the journey towards being an entrepreneur and a successful business owner is like. It's not all, fun and games. And I just kind of started thinking back to when I was younger and all of the jobs that I've had, and I've had a lot of different jobs as I think about it. So I'm going to go through all of them and let you know what I was getting paid so that you can see what the progression was like up to the point that I'm at now. And as we're discussing all of this, I'm going to be flat ironing my hair because it is blown out, and I just want to go ahead and get it together so that I look presentable. It's late right now, the baby's asleep, so this is really my only time to try to get my hair done and ready for the rest of the week. And so I'll be doing that. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you do, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the jobs that I've worked before. I'd be happy to kind of give you some more insight into it. But spoiler alert, my favorite thing that I've ever done is what I'm doing now because I have a lot more freedom than I did at any of these jobs. But with all that being said, let's get started. I'm going to clip my hair up and start flat ironing, and it's just going to be a casual talk. So I hope that you guys enjoy the video. Okay, we're gonna start out by clipping my hair, and I do have a mirror right in front of me, so I apologize if the eye contact is not on point in this video. It's because I'm trying to multitask, so I hope you'll be able to bear with me. So let's talk about these jobs. When I think about the very first job I've ever had, I think it was when I was a babysitter. So this was something that I did when I was a teenager. I remember one kid that I used to babysit specifically. Her name was Gabby, which is kind of ironic because my name is Abby. But she was a really, really nice girl. I think she was like 6. Well, I know that she was 6, and I don't know how I remember her exact age, but she was a really cute girl. She was super smart and really just like a baby prodigy. I don't know, she was in all advanced classes, and she was really good at music and stuff. Anyway, when I was working at that job, I wasn't making much. I was making maybe $10 a day watching her, which I know sounds absurd. I wasn't watching her all day long, but it was for a few hours at a time. And because I was so young, I said I was a teenager, but really I probably was in middle school. I wasn't that old at that time. And so I always was super responsible. And so her parents kind of trusted me with her, and she lived right next door to us. So that is what I did. And like I said, I was making $10 a day. It was literally less than minimum wage, whatever it was back then. But it was fun for me to be able to, make a little bit of money. I will be honest with you guys, I never really saw a lot of the money that I made until I was in college. And the main reason for that is I don't know if you all have ever experienced that. You get a card for your birthday and there's money in it. And you never see the money again. Your mom just kind of takes it and does whatever with it. So that's kind of what it was with the money I was making from there. Don't come from my mom. She just was doing what she had to do at the time. So it's not I really missed it, but I did like being kind of independent and being able to make some money on my own. It let me, learn responsibility, and I kind of felt like I was grown. So after working at that, well, it wasn't really a job, but after doing that for a little while, my first real job where I was on someone's actual payroll was when I worked at McDonald. What an interesting job that was. So when I started working at McDonald's, I was absolutely terrible at that job. I can't even lie. I remember the guy that hired me, my very first manager ever, he used to be so I don't want to say disgusted with me, but honestly, that's kind of the vibes. He just could not believe how bad I was at the job. And obviously, for me on paper, I sounded like the perfect employee, right? I was in National Honor Society, and I was super responsible and good grades and all of that. So I'm sure he thought he was getting someone who was going to learn really quickly and be good at it. But it took me a while to get good at that job, and at the time that I was working there, I was making minimum wage, definitely. At that time, it probably was around $7.50. That's right around what I was making when I was working there. So really not a lot of money, but once again, just being able to like get out of the house and go and have this thing that I was doing consistently was fun for me. And I was like learning to drive around that time too. So I was able to drive myself to work sometimes. So I thought I was popping back then. And yeah, I really wasn't making that much there. So fun fact, I won an award. So after a while of like being trash at my job, I got really, really good at it. So like being the cashier was what I did. I never was like making sandwiches or anything in the back, but I was the cashier, and I also did like fries, and I was in the drive-thru and stuff also. So doing those things, I got really good at it. And they had this like McDonald's Olympics, I swear that's what it was. And I won for my store, and then I won for like my region, and then I went on to like, I don't know, some like state level. It was real weird. But anyway, I remember at that time, that was right when I had gotten like not braces, but if anyone has ever had braces, you know what I'm talking about right here. It's a tongue crib. So basically my problem with my teeth is that my tongue kept on pushing on my teeth, and that was like what caused the gaps that I had. And so in order to prevent, you know, the braces fixing my teeth and then me just like ruining it again and opening up the spaces with my tongue, they put in this tongue crib to keep my tongue back. I'm saying all of this because what happened was I had like this horrible, it was almost like a lisp. So because my tongue couldn't come up, yeah. And so this whole competition was based off of me being like a good cashier. And how could I be a good cashier? So it was really, really nerve wracking. And I remember like the other two cashiers that they had there were so nice and like so freaking good at their job. There was like no way that I was gonna beat them. And it's so funny, one of the guys that was there literally reminded me of like Smooth SpongeBob. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, hi, how are you? Like, he literally was like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna win this. But weirdly enough, I ended up winning. Even with my tongue crib and me talking like that, I ended up winning because I did like one thing that no one else did. And so I won the award for that. So all of that to say, at that job, I was making minimum wage, and it really wasn't that deep, but I learned a lot and, you know, realized that I'm like definitely a people person when I want to be. When I want to be is the key word, because most times I'm an introvert. Like, I don't really like to spend my time around other people as much. And as I'm getting older, it's getting worse. But back then it was cool to just kind of like learn this thing about me, that I could be good at like talking to people. And so after that happened, I ended up leaving that job when I went away to college. And I went to a state school. If anyone's from Jersey, you know Rutgers. Maybe you know that school even if you're not from Jersey, but it's like the big state school. And that's the only school I applied to, and I got in there, and that's where I went. So in the beginning, I was supposed to have like, what did they call it? When you work study. I was supposed to have work study, but for the first semester I didn't have that. So I didn't have a job at all for the very first semester that I was in college. And then after that, I was able to get a job. And the job that I got was working at this place called Telefund. And Telefund was basically a call center where I was supposed to, well, actually that wasn't through work study, but it was just kind of like a campus job. And my whole job was to call people who either like went to Rutgers or like came to an event at Rutgers or something and get them to donate to the school. So I almost was like a telemarketer. And when I went to that job, it was really weird because I'd never, you know, done anything like that. I really had only had one job prior to that. And so to have to like dress up kind of like, you know, business casual and like go a little bit off campus, it was real weird for me. But I ended up getting hired. Most of us did get hired that day. And so that's how I knew that like it probably wasn't a super prestigious job because they weren't that picky. And I started working there. When I started, the pay was $10 an hour, which honestly was not bad, you know? And I knew that they had to make the pay that high because the job sucked. And that's just me being real, like having to be on the phones and calling people and basically, you know, not necessarily begging them to donate, but having to kind of like hassle them to donate was annoying. Like, it wasn't a fun job, and I kind of got over it real quick. But at the same time, there were like fun aspects about it. So I really did like a lot of the people that I worked with, and I met actually my best friend at that job. Her name is Taryn. Hi, Taryn. I met her because we both were working at that same place. And so, like I said, when I started, I was at about $10, and I think it was every year or every like 6 months or something where they increased our pay ever so slightly. They would bump it up like 25 cents or 15 cents or something like that. And eventually I became a peer mentor, which was like a step below a supervisor. And so I think there was a raise that came with that. So I was hovering probably right around like 10.50. And then I did eventually become a supervisor, and that's where my pay took another bump up, probably about $1 or $2. So, the money wasn't that bad at that job, if I'm being honest, but the shifts were only like 3 or 4 hours, and there was a whole lot of drama, child. I could tell you some crazy stories of things that happened at that job. I'm sorry that I'm in my face, but I kind of have to flat iron. And by the way, like these pieces in the front, I'm sure y'all are like, what is going on with your hair? Postpartum shedding is what's going on with my hair. So my son is 14 months old, and my hair is just now starting to kind of grow back on the perimeter and the edges. And yeah, we're struggling a little bit, but it's fine. I'm gonna gel it down and it'll be fine. We'll make it work. So basically, I stayed at that job, and I ended up leaving because I wanted to do something else. I just, like, that job was honestly kind of like soul sucking, if I'm being honest. And near the end, they ended up switching like management. And so they brought in this whole new like management team, and it got really strange. So I was just over it, and I wanted to leave. Now, in between working at that job, because I was there for a few years, during the summertime, I would do other things. So I don't know if you all are like college age or not, but in college, a lot of them have something called orientation. So orientation is where the freshmen go to the school during the summer, and they get to kind of like meet other freshmen and, have like different activities and stuff during the day. So it's basically like summer camp for college kids. So orientation is what I did during the summer for a job. I was an orientation leader. So my job was to just kind of like bring in the freshmen and, be nice to them and introduce them to Rutgers and be super peppy and inviting and all of that. And honestly, as I'm thinking about what they paid us there, that was like slavery. Like, I know that sounds dramatic, but they paid us $3,000 as orientation leaders, and that was for about 3 months of work. And when I say 3 months of work, I mean like up at the crack of dawn, like 7 a.m. I think is when we had to be downstairs to meet the students. And then it was a full day of activities, not much downtime. And then on the first day, it would go from 7 a.m., like I said, all the way until like 10 p.m. because we had like this party at the end of the day for them. And it was optional for them, but not really. Well, it was optional for us too, but it's also the summer, so you want to try and have some fun. So that's when the orientation leaders would like let loose and dance and stuff also. The point that I'm trying to make is that we were working a lot of hours for not a lot of pay. I did have fun though, I can't lie. I did really like that job, and it was cool, Now, the summer after that, I became an orientation team leader, which is like a supervisor, and you have to kind of like manage the orientation leaders. And so my pay did go up, and my pay was $4,200 for the 3 months. So definitely a bump there, but honestly, like when you break down the numbers, like I said, it really was like less than minimum wage. It was probably like $3 an hour if you really broke it down. So a big perk of that was that you got to stay on campus for free. So that was cool, like free summer housing, and I didn't have to go home. I didn't really like my hometown and didn't really have friends there, so I always wanted an excuse to stay on campus during the summer. And so that's what I did for those 2 summers. And then after that, I went and became an RA. So an RA is a resident assistant, and that means that you are kind of like I don't know how I would describe it. You're like the hall monitor for the place that you live, though. So you're basically in charge of making sure that if there are any conflicts between students who are living together, you're like the go-to person. You kind of bring in the students. It was kind of similar to being an orientation leader. And the benefit of that job, you didn't get paid, but you did get free housing and like a meal plan for free as well. So that's the reason that I did that, because I was on financial aid the entire time I was in college, and I really had to like kind of hustle to be able to finish college. There was a whole thing that happened, and I'm not going to get into it, but being an RA was really like my only option, and that's the reason why I did it so late. A lot of times people will do it like from the time that they're a sophomore, but I didn't do it until much later. I got hair in my lip gloss. Until much later, and it was really out of like necessity more than actually wanting to do it. So, like I said, I became a people person, and so I wasn't really surprised that I got that job, only because the hiring process was a whole bunch of like games where you had to interact with people, and as you were doing that, you were being like watched and scored. And so I knew what they were looking for. They wanted like a team player that wasn't afraid to like take the lead here and there. Once you've kind of done something similar, you get the feel for what they want. And so I was pretty confident that I was going to get it, which I did after a lot of interviews, actually. There was a group interview, there were individual interviews, and it was kind of a long process, but I ended up getting it. Like I said, there wasn't actual pay for that. And so here is where I needed to get a job that was going to pay me actual money, because as nice as it was to have, free housing, not have to worry about like rent or anything, I still needed money to go to $2 Tuesday and like, buy clothes and things that I needed. So I ended up looking for another job, and the job that I got was actually in career services. So if you're not familiar, when you are in college, most colleges, I think all colleges, will have an office called career services, and their whole job is to kind of like prepare the students and make sure that you're able to get a job after school and help you get like internships and stuff. So I was working in career services, and I was, I don't even remember what the name of the position was, but I was basically just like almost like an executive assistant, if that makes sense. I would do kind of data entry, but also I was in charge of bringing employers on campus and like letting them have presentations to try to get students to go to their internships and like apply for jobs with them and stuff. So I would host or would like facilitate them hosting these presentations at night. And it was cool, it wasn't a hard job, and I was getting paid $14 an hour, though I wasn't getting like tons of hours. So that was the thing, is that the pay was really good, but there weren't a lot of hours. So that's what I was doing there. I didn't have many coworkers. I only worked with like 3 other people, and at any time there were only 2 of us in the office at once. So it was cool. And this is really like when I start to think about fate and like things that are just meant for you are gonna like show themselves. So I'm not gonna get too much into my whole journey with like college and how I ended up doing what I did after college, because then that's gonna be a whole nother video, and I can make that if you guys want it. Just let me know in the comments. But basically, I was always pre-med, and then I decided that I just didn't want to go to med school anymore. And so I had to figure out something else to do. And, I had no clue what I was going to end up doing. Like, I had always thought that I was going to go into medicine. And so I remember that I did not work on Mondays, but there was a Monday where there was going to be this like diversity and inclusion career fair. So all of these companies were coming and were specifically looking for, people of color and women, other like minority groups to apply for their jobs. And so I was just in charge of like setting things up, making sure that everyone knew what tables they were at and stuff like that. So I ended up meeting this woman who ended up, just kind of telling me about their company and stuff. And I, if I'm being honest, was not like super interested because I had never heard of the company before. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about this. And, my mind just wasn't there. Like I was at work. I wasn't really thinking about getting a job. And what ended up happening was she gave me her email address and I just kind of like stuck the paper in my purse. I did not ever plan on reaching out to her. And, I just took it to be polite. But later on, like a couple of weeks later, I was really starting to think like, what am I going to do once I graduate? Like I actually do need a job. And I remembered, I'm starting to sweat. The lights are making me hot. I remembered that she had given me her email address. So I was looking through my purse and I found the paper. And what's funny is her email address had an L in it and it looked like an I and I didn't know like what letter it was. And so I was just like, you know what, whatever. I'm not going to even email her because I don't even know what the email address is. But I was like, let me just send it to both emails just to be sure. So I didn't really think that it was going to go anywhere, but I ended up like reading up on the company and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is actually a really good company. They have lots of good benefits, Fortune 500. I started to read about the position and I was like, dang, this job sounds kind of popping. And, I ended up having coffee with her. I just, when she emailed me back, I just kind of like stayed in contact with her. And then I asked her if she wanted to, have coffee with me. I didn't even drink coffee, child. I was trying to be grown. I asked her to get coffee with me on campus. So she like went out of her way to come to the campus to have coffee with me. And she told me that she had an open position on her team in Brooklyn. And as I said, Rutgers is in Jersey. So I was like, okay, New York is really expensive. I don't necessarily want to live there, but at the same time, like it's a great company and this might be, my best chance to get in the company and maybe I can just like switch to a different place when the time is right. So I ended up applying for that job and I remember that my interview was literally on a Wednesday. It was on the day after the last $2 Tuesday of college. And I was so hurt that I couldn't go. I mean, realistically, I could have gone, but I didn't want to take the chance of being like hungover or still drunk and, not making it to the interview in time. I was like taking it super seriously. And so I ended up going. I had to take the train and like do all this stuff to get there. And I ended up getting there. I was like super, super nervous. I'd never had an interview that intense in my life. There were 3 ladies that interviewed me, including, the one that I'd had coffee with. And afterwards, I was just like, over analyzing everything. Like, why did I answer that? And just, not feeling so great about it. But long story short is I ended up going through a couple of different interviews. So I had that panel interview and then I ended up having 2 more interviews. Actually, I think I had 3 more interviews. I think I had like 4 or 5 in total. And one sec, let me cool down. I need a drink or something. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. So as I was saying, I had multiple interviews and it was all very, very stressful, but I did end up getting the job. And this was my first and really only big girl job because I ended up working there for 3 entire years. So obviously I got the job and my offer letter was for $55,000. And this was, like I said, straight out of college, which really was not bad at all, especially because it was a sales job. And so I was going to have bonuses on top of that. So 55K was the base salary. And I think my target bonus for, what I would make if I hit all of my numbers and stuff was like an extra 23K or 25K or something like that. And so, definitely not bad for a first job straight out of college. That job was very interesting, and I'm happy to talk more about it. By the way, it was in pharmaceutical sales. I don't think I've even mentioned that. So the whole job is I was basically like selling medication, and I'm not saying the drugs word because I don't know if that's gonna trigger something in YouTube and I won't be able to, have this video be viewed by everyone, but that's what I was doing. I was selling it to doctors, and it was a really, really interesting job, especially working in Brooklyn, because my whole territory, like the area that I worked in, and it was field based, so I didn't go into an office or anything, was all Russian people. And so obviously I'm not Russian, I don't speak Russian, and I looked very different from every person in all the offices that I went to. At times there was definitely a language barrier as well. So it was just really tricky. I had to like get very creative with the way that I did my job, and it was what it was. I actually ended up moving to Atlanta. I was doing the same job, working in the same position, and like I said, I ended up working at that company for 3 years. And during that time is when I started my side hustle, which was selling products on Amazon. And, I can kind of just talk about what that process was like in another video if you're interested in it. But basically, I started to look into private labeling, which is where you buy products in bulk and then, you put your own logo on the products and then you resell it. So that's what I was wanting to do. And I ended up, just kind of starting it as like a little thing, didn't know if it was going to work or not. And it didn't actually in the beginning. So what I do for a living now, I actually ended up like kind of failing at it the first 2 times that I tried it. And then I tried it one more time and had a product that did really, really well. And from there, I just kind of had things take off for me. So I ended up being able to quit my 9 to 5 to do what I do now, which is sell stuff on Amazon. And it's really awesome. It's a great business to be in. And what I make now just kind of varies from month to month. I am kind of at the point now where every month I'm doing 6 figures in sales with my business, which is absolutely insane to even be able to say that out loud. It's something that I'm super, super thankful for. And as I look back at all of the jobs that I did leading up to this, it just kind of really is humbling, working at these regular jobs. And oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about when I worked at Forever 21. I only did that for like a few months over the summertime when I was at home for one summer, and that job sucked. I can't even think of anything good to say about it. Even the discount for employees sucked. It was like 10% or something, really small. So yeah, didn't like working at Forever 21, but that was definitely one of my jobs. And I had another job over the summer that I'm also forgetting about, where I was like a tour guide to these foreign exchange students. It was really weird, and I definitely was not qualified for that job. Forever 21 was minimum wage, by the way. This other job, they paid us like a per diem, I guess is what you would call it, or like a stipend for the time that I was hired. So I was only hired for, I think it was like 2 months out of the summer. And my job was to take these foreign exchange kids on the train and take them to New York City and take them to like the United Nations and Statue of Liberty and Fifth Avenue, like all of the main attractions. I was their person to lead them through all of that. Mind you, at the time I was like 18, didn't know anything about New York. Back then, phones weren't as, good with the GPS as they are now. If it was right now, I would be great at the job because I would just be able to use my phone. Back then, it wasn't as reliable. So I'd be like walking these kids down for a mile and realize like I was going the wrong way. And the struggle of trying to make sure they were on the train and off the train when they needed to be, I should not have been given that much responsibility. Thank goodness I never lost anyone. I never had anything crazy happen or anything go seriously wrong, but that was the most stressful job I've ever had in my life. I would not do it again for any amount of money. So I did that. My stipend was kind of similar to when I was an orientation leader. Like it wasn't a lot if you broke it down per hour, but it was a job and I got to be away from home for the summer. So, I did it. But yeah, that's where I'm at now. So I work for myself. I make my own hours. Everything is amazing getting to be home with my son. I can make more videos than I do plan to on Amazon selling and just other ways that you can make money from home, or things that you can do on the side to be able to just make a better living. Even if you like your job or whatever it is, there's always room for more streams of income. So I hope to focus more on that throughout my channel. But with that, that's all I have for this video. My hair is just about done. I did get a trim after a very long time, and like I said, my edges and my surrounding hair, like the edges and the perimeter, are struggling to grow back, but it's just hair, they'll grow back, and I got my son out of it, so I can't really be that mad about it. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and let me know what other videos you want to see. I'll be happy to try to incorporate them into what I have planned. But with that, I'm going to close out the video. I hope you all have a great one, and I'll see you in the next one.